I'm Judith Brown. The show starts now. And we're going to start on the political front because Ghana, a beacon of democracy in West Africa, witnessed a series of pivotal events in 2024 that shaped the country's political landscape. In this report, we delve into the key moments that defined Ghana's political journey in 2024. As the clock struck midnight on December 31, 2023, Ghanaians ushered in a new year filled with hope, anticipation and uncertainty. The year 2024 would prove to be a pivotal moment in Ghana's democratic journey, marked by significant political events that would shape the country's future. Well, from the intense parliamentary primaries to the highly contested general elections, 2024 was a year of twists and turns that kept the nation on the edge of their seats. Here's a rundown. The New Patriotic Party's parliamentary primaries kick-started the political year, marking the first step in the party's quest to retain power in the general elections. There would, however, be casualties. And just as each political party braced itself for a power-packed election year, an unexpected resignation hit the legislature.
You woke up to the news of the resignation of the majority leader in Parliament.
The veteran parliamentarian would leave the scene of leadership, clearing the path for his deputy to assume the reins of leadership.
Mr. Speaker, no way! Mr. Speaker, no way! Honourable member, you don't listen at all. Mr. Speaker, I do. I never said you. Mr. Speaker, you said I never said you threw a paper at anybody. Mr. Speaker.
With the leadership of Parliament reconstituted, the business of winning an election would kick into gear. John Mahama would retain Prof. Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman as his trusted ally in his pursuit of the seat of government. The woman who was first in many would deliver a speech markedly different from all others seen from her since her introduction into the political landscape.
At the time of reckoning, Your Excellency John Dramani Mahama, I will not, in the advancement of self-serving ambition, declare to the whole world that I was only the driver's mate. The election ahead is not so much about Ghana making history, although that is important. It is not so much about returning a competent president back to power. It is not even about producing the first woman vice president, historical and exciting though these are. The purpose is the opportunity to heal our country again.
After what looked like forever, Vice President and MPP flag bearer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia would also announce Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh as his running mate.
Someone come home and said Dr. Bawumia, and then
The reaction would be instantaneous.
Well, I wouldn't speak for a majority because, as I told you, we have not been consulted as a caucus for us to state our position. But me, Apia Kubi, you can solicit my view on that. If it was for me to choose, I would choose him. Why? He's not my preference. Me.
He's not your preference?
Yes.
Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh is...
Apia Kubi is saying that he is not my preference.
From then on in, campaign activities, not as though it hadn't started, would be kicked into new gears. Candidates crisscrossing the length and breadth of the country, promising a new dawn. Both parties in August 2024 launched their manifestos. The NDC promising a transformative 24-hour economy aiming to boost economic growth and development, and the MPP focusing on digitalization, leveraging technology to drive innovation, improve governance, and enhance the overall quality of life of Ghanaians.
As a tertiary student, there's hope that after you finish school, there's a job waiting for you, that you can also start your life as a youth growing in the country and then make it to the top.
I want the MPP party to continue with the free secondary school. I want my siblings to enjoy free SHS.
What I've realized in this country is the unemployment rate. And the NDC has the 24-hour economy policy, of which I think if John Dramani Mahama in this 2024 election, if he wins and then he comes to power, through this 24-hour economy, he's going to employ majority of the youth.
As the days inch closer, the Electoral Commission opened nominations for interested individuals, both on the presidential and parliamentary front, to put their money where their mouth is. 13 presidential candidates made it to the list with some shocking disqualifications, including the PNC flag bearer, Bernard Mona.
This is a party that was formed in 1992. I'm sure that most of the people at the commission, if you subtract the number of years from 1992 to date from their years, they will probably be in JSS. And so this party has participated and shaped the political will of the people of Ghana from 1992. And it is not the case that we have not done what we have to do. If the EC had problems, and then they drew our attention and we ratified those problems, what could then be the basis upon which we are not on the qualified list?
Unfortunately, his attempt to seek redress in court proved futile. As the curtain closes on 2024, Ghanaians reflect on the journey that has shaped their nation's destiny. The year has been a testament to the resilience and determination of the Ghanaian people, who have exercised their franchise and made their voices heard. As the nation looks into the future, it is clear that the outcomes of these events will have far-reaching implications for Ghana's development and governance. Judith Brown, TV3 News.
And pretty much what the year 2024 has been like. Well, joining me in studio right now, myself and Judith, is Alfred Okanse. He's the head of political desk here at Media General. He's also the lead anchor for Election Command Center, host of Ghana Tonight on TV3, and co-host of Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Seated just by my left as well, Beatrice Edu is the news editor for 3FM 92.7. She's also the co-anchor for Hot Edition on 3FM, as well as your host on Agenda, which should have been about this time of the evening on a Monday like this, but we're reviewing 2020. We're reviewing 2024, and so she's seated here as well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Year in Review show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps just quick thoughts on what 2024 has been in terms of the politics. We'll get into the elections proper, but let's just start perhaps with just thoughts generally.
Oh, I thought the head of politics was going to...
You want the head of... No, but we say ladies first.
We are making use of your agenda period.
Okay, no problem, no problem. I think it's been really, like you said, an interesting political year. You're talking about an election year, of course, which had the NPP go out of power after 8 years, but not just go out of power, but with such massive margins that, you know, it shocked them, and it also shocked the incoming government, the NDC as well. You're also talking about the processes leading to the election itself, where you had about 13 presidential candidates. I think that was the longest, and the second time we had such a long list like that. I think the first time was in 2008, am I right? When you had about 12 or 13, the same number. And then we had a repeat. And we saw, I'm going to the point of the demise of Ekweadonko. Somebody exactly who had been on the scene for a long time, and I remember when she submitted her forms, and that force, I mean, that hug she gave the Electoral Commission was, and she was full of energy, only for you to wake up like how many days later and she was gone. So that was really a big blow. And of course, I mean, Cheddar coming on just this year, and beating Alan Tremantin to it. Yeah. That was, I mean, 80,000+ votes, and Alan having just, I mean, I don't want to add.
You're getting really excited.
Yes, I don't want people to, yes, I don't want people, I know people are still nursing their wounds, so I want to be careful how I say those things. But seriously, I think it's been an interesting political year.
We'll get into the nitty-gritties of the election and how it all went down. But Alfred, I mean, an interesting year, you'd say as well. You've been in the thick of things, having to sit in and host as and when the big political stories came about. How would you say 2024 has been?
Eventful, I would say. Every election year comes with a lot for us as journalists to look out for and to do as well. So, I mean, just as Beatrice said, a number of things, high points for us as media people going into this particular election and the aftermath of it. I feel like we're still in the election mood because of the outstanding constituencies that still engage our attention. I mean, we're talking about an election that we went into with the highest number of independent presidential candidates. Yeah. I mean, 4 of them, we've never had that much going into an election. And even for the parliamentary candidates, we had about 111 independent parliamentary candidates as well. And that gave us a lot to talk about. I mean, so based on that, plus everything that Beatrice has talked about, I think that is one that will give us a lot of reflection going to 2028. There are so many trends we can't refer to in 2028 because all those trends have just been thrown out in the window. Yeah. And we'll probably have to recreate and rewrite our political history. And going into 2028, what would make sense for us going forward? Yeah.
All right, it looks like everybody's getting a bit excited about what the December 7 general election looked like. But the 2024 elections, like you've been hearing them talk about, have been a highly contested and intense affair, with the ruling New Patriotic Party, the NPP, facing off against the opposition National Democratic Congress, the NDC. The December 7 elections saw voters casting their ballots for a new president and 276 members of parliament. My colleague Evelyn Tengma takes us through in the following report on how it all started and ended.
2024 will go down in history as an eventful year. It's a year majority of Ghanaians waited long for, and the reason? The presidential and parliamentary elections. Election years are usually characterized with lots of political activities in the build-up to December. The NPP started the year with the election of its parliamentary candidates for the December polls. The NDC had theirs in 2023. One of the biggest news at the beginning of the year was the announcement of one of the giants in politics, Alan Kwejo Tremantin, quitting the New Patriotic Party, NPP.
It was my fervent wish to use the vehicle of their party to bring my God-given talents, experience, and knowledge acquired both locally and internationally over a period of 46 years to serve our dear nation, Ghana, at the highest level of executive authority. It is abundantly clear to me that my services and contributions to the party are not appreciated, and that my continuous stay in the party will create further tension and divisions. Under the circumstances, and given the context provided, I wish to use this platform to announce that I'm honorably resigning with immediate effect.
He later formed the Movement for Change, with him as a flag bearer to contest the opposition National Democratic Congress's National Executive Committee endorsed Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyeman as running mate to the flag bearer John Mahama.
To you all, I extend my deep appreciation for endorsing my nomination and for accepting me again.
After months of intense lobbying, the NPP also announced Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh as Dr. Bawumia's running mate going into the December polls.
Since 1957,
his comments on Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was not taken lightly at all by a cross-section of the public.
It's about the way and the manner he dismissed the global icon with that derogatory comment. I don't think that anybody would say people are wrong when they say you are arrogant. It's exactly the kind of rhetoric that you have had, with the people of this country.
Then, the NDC on July 27 officially launched its campaign in Tamale.
More than 80% of Ghanaians said that our country is going in the wrong direction. And that is why on 7 December, Ghana must change course. We cannot solve the crisis in which we are with the same people who caused the crisis in the first place.
And then on August 18, 2024, in Takoradi, Western Region, the NPP also launched its manifesto.
We remain committed to fulfilling the social contract we have with the good people of Ghana.
The NDC also launched its manifesto on August 24 at the University of Education, Winneba, in the Central Region. With campaigns and manifestos officially launched, the parties went into full-gear campaigns, touring the whole of the country. The NDC wanted a reset of the country.
We either reset or we sink further.
While NPP propounded the upgrade agenda.
I am presenting myself to you for the first time to ask for your precious vote to serve you as your president and to continue the development agenda of the NPP.
The other smaller parties later elected their flag bearers and started their campaigns as well. And as expected, the two main parties traded verbal attacks on each other.
We have not seen one SADA project in the 5 northern regions. We asked him, where are the guinea fowls? He said they have flown to Burkina Faso.
He posed 170 questions to my Vice President, Emisata. He shouldn't answer 170 questions. He should answer only 3 questions. 3. Why is the exchange rate 17 cedis to the dollar?
Campaigns were officially brought to an end on December 5, crowned with mammoth rallies by the two leading parties in Accra. Then came December 7.
It's great. I mean, for some time now, we've been anticipating for the time to, make a decision. And today is the day. I didn't sleep the whole night. I've been waiting for this day. You have no idea. So yeah, I'm actually happy. I'm very elated to be here to cast my vote.
On Sunday, December 8, history was made.
The data from our own internal collation of the election results indicate that former President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has won the presidential election decisively. The NDC has also won the parliamentary election, even though we await final collation for a number of seats. However, I believe ultimately that these will not change the overall outcome.
The Electoral Commission subsequently announced John Mahama as president-elect.
I have the singular honor as the returning officer of the 2024 presidential election to declare His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the winner of the 2024 presidential election and the president-elect of the Republic of Ghana.
This successful outcome can only be the doing of the Lord.
One can argue that overall, the 2024 elections were a significant test of the country's democratic resilience. Evelyn Tinkma, TV3 News, Accra.
Pretty much what the elections look like. I don't know if I should still call them guests, but my colleagues are here with us. And we're going to talk through the year, the political year, and then the elections as well. I want us to start perhaps first off from our election coverage, from the campaigning period up until what was 24-hour shift system.
Hours. Remember Team No Sleep, right?
Which we run. The three of you actually were pretty much in the studio for the greater part of the time. And so I want you guys, perhaps we just start with how it all went down, 7 viewers, non-stop action, back-to-back and all of that.
Well, yeah, maybe before we get into the election proper, the pre-election period as well had a lot going for us here at Media Journal. We went into this election with the sole objective of offering our viewers the most extensive coverage. That was the promise and also the social contract that we have with our viewers. And I think that by far we delivered that. And then also we probably went beyond the expectation of our viewers as well. And at this point, we've all received the feedback from our viewers on this election coverage. It's an encouragement for all of us, you know, and then also it gives us an idea of what we can do going forward. And the next 4 years for us, this only presents a challenge, really, because then there's going to be a lot more expected of us going into the next election. But even before we got into December 7, we had started Community Manifesto, which, you know, Judith at some point got in, powered by the New Day team. We also had other programs as well running, like the women. There was one dedicated to women as
that
well.
was Women's
and then
Manifesto, actually.
Election 360 as well, which then gave us also the opportunity to play with a lot of the data over the period. Because going into this election, it was quite clear that, one, we're going to have data at play, but then again, we opened up ourselves for a lot of the surprises, which really happened, and all the number of the trends that we dwelt on and referenced were broken at the constituency level, at the presidential level as well. I mean, constituencies that do not retain their members of parliament, we've seen it broken. The Jokoko, Adenta, you know, they've all retained their MPs, you know, much for the first time since the year 2000. And then as well on radio, on 3FM, we had the Hot Edition, which was rebranded, extended to accommodate the election stories and the coverage that we're going into as well. Our sister stations on Media Journal, the Media Journal platform also had their own packages, Onia TV, Onia FM, Connect FM, Akuma. All of them got into the election mood. I mean, so we also had By the Numbers as well, which was created specifically for the elections. There were about 12 programs that we put together and segments that we put together on the various shows to make sure that our viewers and listeners are brought on to speed with everything before the elections. And then during the elections as well, all we saw with respect to our reporters and our correspondents, our colleagues who were on the ground. For me, the reporters were the high point for me during the coverage. Definitely. I mean, we saw some people who surprised all of us. I mean, Anita Kufu and what's his name, Cookie, Godwin Nambo, and all those. I mean, they absolutely for them. I think they are now extended staff of the newsroom. they will be joining us, you know, as and when we need them. But it was a fulfilling one, to say the least. So I am more focused on what we did before the elections, because for me, it prepared the minds of our viewers that this is our offering, this is what we're committed to, and this is what we intended to do, and we did that.
Interesting. And for when I was in, Shayo Sudoku, I was in Gomoa Central, I did Agona East. I went to a number of constituencies just to, speak to the women, to highlight the women factor when it comes to members of parliament. And surprisingly, most of them were elected members of parliament, aside a few of them.
All the places you visited.
Almost all the places, apart from Gomoa Central, unfortunately, where A plus surprisingly won that seat. But it was quite interesting speaking to these women, because we know that when it comes to being a member of parliament, we've seen more of the men take that position, and we are yet to see more women occupy these positions. We are at 40-41 now.
Yeah, I think there's been a slight drop in terms of the women representation expected ahead of the 9th Parliament.
Very true, and we are still expecting some seats, Dom Kwabinya and the others, and so these were some of the things that we did, delved into the woman factor, and also during the election coverage proper, very interesting. Team No Sleep, Johnny, myself, and Helen, I am so grateful to them. And of course, it was a very interesting one. I'm not a coffee girl, but I had to drink so much coffee. I did a lot of coffee during the election coverage. And it was a very interesting experience, playing with the numbers, interviewing some of our main guests, Lawyer Jantwa, Adam Bona, Senor Hosi, the ladies as well. Very interesting. I mean,
yeah. I'll start the conversation proper now in relation to the key events with Beatrice. The year started with the parliamentary elections. There were, particularly for the governing New Patriotic Party, there were quite a number of shocks. It dovetailed into the resignation of Alan Tremantin. Looking back, and what is now known widely as a monumental defeat for the governing party, would you say those events foretold of what was to come for the NPP in terms of...
I think so. I think so because, I mean, going into this year's general election, you could see a lot of signs coming from the regions, coming from constituencies. Let's even go to the Ashanti region, where you have about 47 constituencies, right? In the last general election, we had MPP take about 3, am I right? And then this year's general election...
NDC, you mean?
NDC, yes. Had about 3.
Four. It was 4 seats.
Out of the 47. Yeah. And this year, they managed to gain more than that. I mean, that should tell you that, yes, you may call the Ashanti region as your stronghold, but people are becoming more discerning. Right. But even ahead of the election, and that's what I was saying, that there were signs all over. Look at what they did to Oseche Mensah-Bonsu about the Swami magazine and the roads around that place. For a whole MP to be stoned, and also exactly, and for also the decision by the MPs, over 80 of them, to want to get the finance minister then out, led by Andiapi Akubi, and eventually they did a U-turn on that. All of that, because initially they were saying that if we don't deal with this matter now, they are going to punish us in our constituencies. So we want to prove to them that we are representing them, and that's why we are asking for this. But at the end of the day, they did a U-turn. But the funny thing is that they still lost the seats. Very true. Because people, Ghanaians, I think Ghanaian electorates are becoming more discerning. And then you talked about the constituencies that all of us didn't, I mean, when we're doing, like Alfred was saying, before the elections even started, we're talking about the trends. We talked about Dom Kwabena being the stronghold of the NPP. We talked about a few other places. And now you have these constituencies being swept away by the NDC. That should tell you that Ghanaians are no more looking at, I'm loyal to you because my family votes this way. I'm loyal to you because that's what I believe in. But I'm looking at the situation in my life and the issues and where I think the country should go. And we're deciding. And I think basically that's what we saw in this year's general election. And the signs were really clear. People were talking about the cedi depreciation. People were talking about, the doom saw. We said, I mean, the vice presidential candidate, Matthew Poku Prempeh, said it's not doom saw, it's doom CSA. And a whole lot of politicking that, were around the issues. And so if people were paying critical attention to the issues on the ground, the signs were really there. But I would still admit that it was quite a massive shock to an extent that even the winning party still feels, okay, we thought we were going to win, but these margins, so basically, I would just tell you that it just tells you what Ghanaians are thinking beyond the politics or the colours.
And Alfred, still on the shock bits, in Parliament, I believe is where perhaps the biggest of the shocks came from. Yes, like Beatrice has said, Ghanaians have gotten to a certain point where they believe they are not going to toe a particular political line just because they have to. But many didn't anticipate that it could cause such a swirlwind in terms of, or a tsunami, if you like to call it that, in Parliament. But we've seen seats that we've never dreamt of going to the NDC. Go to the NDC.
The highlight for me was the Asokwa constituency. Nancy Asokwa, I mean, look, K.T. Hammond, with all the antiques, and he got some negative energy around him. Look, let's not downplay that. But to think that the NDC could win, and with that margin, obviously for many political analysts was unthinkable. But guess what? It's all about the economy. And when some politicians use this phrase, it's an American term. So if you say it's all about the economy, stupid, it's not an insult, really. But people were just looking into their lives. It was all about the bread and butter issues. So for me, if you look at how things played out in Parliament, now we went into this election with 137 for MPP, 137 for NDC, with an independent candidate doing business with the MPP, breaking that tie and making the MPP the slimmest majority that we have had in our parliamentary history. Now, Ghanaians have had a taste of the hung parliament, and they've seen the outcome of the hung parliament and how the hung parliament either benefited us or created its own challenges for us as a people. Yeah. We're going into the 8th parliament, I beg your pardon. We're going into this 9th parliament with a supermajority for a political party. Yeah. Because the 8th parliament with this hung parliament had its own challenges, but then again, we can look at a lot of benefits that it brought to us as well. And the chaos that it was ushered into, and then also the aftermath of it, and during this churn as a parliament. Look, the NDC has won 15 out of the 15 seats in the Upper East region. That's 15 over 15. Upper West, 11 over 11. You can talk about Volta region, 18 over 18. Talk about the Western region, 15 out of 17. Talk about the Central region, which was a stronghold that we had a lot of time studying the trends
swing seats
in the swing region of the Central region. 18 seats and counting as we see now, 18 seats.
Out of 21?
23.
23.
Going into this election, at the time, the NDC held 13 out of the 23 seats in the Central region. The MPP had 10. Look at what's happened now and the outcome of this 2024 election. Right. 18 out of 23. Let's look at Greater Accra region, another swing region. Yeah. Look at the number of seats in here.
In fact,
and then what the MPP has
in the lead up to the elections, one of the concerns particularly was that if you had a majority of your seats being from the Greater Accra region, which was a swing region, that would be a dangerous ground for you to be entering, because the people could switch their minds very easily.
And really, if you want to understand the pulse of the people going into an election, look at the Greater Accra region. Because the economy and the economic situation is reflected mostly in the Greater Accra region. Very true. Because that's where business, evolves. That's the fulcrum of the economy. So when we're going into this election and we're talking about the economy being the major reason why people would really vote. And because you had the likes of Global Info Analytics, Afrobarometer survey, and then also you had the NCC, all doing surveys that pointed to a particular direction, pinpointing the 5 key issues that would influence voter decision. The economy was always coming up tops. Yeah. And so when you had the president, 2-3 weeks to the election, commissioning these flyovers and all. Infrastructure was good as well, because then you see, if you extend it to the first 10 issues, you have infrastructure in there. The reason why for some people, Ashanti region didn't really show up for the NPP was that, they talk about being your stronghold. But then the people there are looking and saying, okay, you know what, we've been committed to you, but the flyovers that you have there, Swami, and then also Sopoline.
It's not completed.
Not completed.
Amongst other things. Alfred, I want you to stay there so that we can have a conversation quickly in relation to Parliament and its outlook. Dr. Rashid Draman, a friend of us really here at TV3, he's Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. He's joined us this evening as we review the year 2024 and what Parliament has looked like, and look ahead into the year 2025 as well as the 9th Parliament. Dr. Draman, I appreciate that you could speak to us this evening. Perhaps we'll start from what the make of the 8th Parliament has been like in terms of the acrimony which existed, the difficulty in being able to carry out business, and then the expectation really for the 9th Parliament. How different, markedly different, do you expect the 9th Parliament to be as compared to the one which is gradually grinding to an end?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Martin. Let me start with the 8th Parliament, and to say that, I know there are many who argue that the Parliament has been chaotic, not very much was achieved because of the way it started and the way it was almost ending. But I am one who is of the view, having seen many parliaments before this one, of the view that despite all the gridlock, despite all the challenges, the 8th Parliament has taught me a number of lessons, particularly when it comes to oversight. that, we had the curse of majorities in previous parliaments, which prevented those parliaments from holding the government to account. When we came to the 8th parliament with the tight numbers, at least I have seen in a number of areas, i.e. in the budget kind of process, a situation where over the years, members of parliament have told me, but there's nothing we can do. I mean, the constitution doesn't allow us and so on. Not knowing it was rather the fact that, majorities were being used to abuse the process. In this 8th parliament, we've seen, let me just take the e-levy. If it was in the 7th parliament, there wouldn't have been any discussion or conversation, or Ghanaians wouldn't even have heard very much about the e-levy, not to talk about, negotiations to reduce the percentage.
Rates, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the rate of the levy that was being imposed on Ghanaians by the government. We've seen a situation where the lawmaking process has significantly improved. There are some who say this parliament passed less laws than previous parliaments, maybe comparing it to the 7th parliament. But if you go deep into it, you would find that the level of interest, Martin, and the engagement of MPs in the lawmaking process in this 8th parliament, I think is far better than what we have seen in previous parliaments. And we have also seen, at least thanks to the efforts of Right Honorable Speaker Okwe in terms of the private members' bills, we've seen, the significant kind of number of bills that were passed, through private members in this 8th parliament, even if at some point the president refused to assent to some of these bills. That's another matter altogether. We've also seen, Martin, that, the rules that govern how parliament works, the standing orders, parliament after parliament, I can say, because I've been involved, in a project to revise the standing orders, and that did not work. Star Ghana invested resources, it didn't work. CDD invested resources, it didn't work. But it only took the 8th parliament, I think, because of the reality that dawned on both sides. And of course, because of the leadership of the Right Honorable Speaker, we now have new standing orders, replacing the old one that dates from the year 2000. We've also seen, in the administration of Parliament, how, the reforms that have taken place under this 8th Parliament have particularly given women a significant role in the management of our legislative institution.
Right.
So, these are some of the things that, we can recount as, despite all the challenges.
Right.
And what people see on the surface, some of the things that we can credit the 8th Parliament with.
Parliament for. Doc, I'm going to come in now, and it's Mawina here, Mawina and not Martin. Mawina, Doc, in relation to the checks which you speak of as to the 8th Parliament being able to do a number in terms of the majority just being a rubber stamp, really, for the executive. We're going into a 9th Parliament where there's a supermajority, and many fear that it could be an avenue for everything the executive will want to be passed by the legislature. How do we ensure that this does not become the case? Is it much more to do with who is leading the business of the majority of the government in Parliament, or more to do with the Speaker? Because I've heard you give a lot of credits to the current Speaker for the work that he's done, And I'm leaning into a particular direction with this question as well as to whether or not you will favor the arguments that he should be retained. How important is the role of the Speaker in ensuring that the legislature is not a rubber stamp in the 9th Parliament?
Well, I mean, the role of the Speaker is significant. Maybe let me start with the happenings in these dying days of the 8th Parliament and the role that the Speaker played. Look, I mean, the work that some of us do advocate for very strong legislative arms of government. You want, a government that stands on 3 equal legs. Over the years, we've seen the wobbly one has been our legislature, but we've seen, most recently, some of what transpired in Parliament and how the Right Honourable Speaker, was able to stand up both to the executive and to the judiciary. I mean, let me be clear, I'm not advocating for disobedience of the Supreme Court and so on. But I am advocating for a separation of powers where we have, all the 3 arms standing on equal footing. Can you imagine if it was, the 7th Parliament or the 6th Parliament? We're not going to hear or we're not going to see what we saw, in terms of what the Right Honourable Speaker did. Sorry, my son is bothering me. Go and sit down, Imad.
And so Doc having a bit of issues with his son, bugging him just a little. But Doc, just round up for me in relation to that and the expectation that the role of the Speaker. You've highlighted what Speaker Bagbin was able to do to ensure that we didn't have a rubber stamp 8th Parliament. Talk to us about if you advocate for him to be retained, and how important that position of Speaker can be in ensuring that the legislature is not, in the 9th legislature is not a rubber stamp.
Well, I mean, very strongly advocate for the retention of the Right Honourable Speaker. I mean, if for nothing at all, at least for the continuation of some of the reforms that we have seen. And then also, the continuation of, at least what oversight role we have seen him lead in this 8th Parliament. I am not too sure whether he can turn his back on what he did in this 8th Parliament, even if the NDC is in power. But let me say, it doesn't just take the Speaker. I think it takes more the members of Parliament. And my worry, I think in the 9th Parliament, and I hope I am proved wrong, majorities and super majorities like what we are going to see are usually not good for oversight. And then also, if you tie that up to the fact that, like Alfred has mentioned and some of your colleagues there have mentioned, the loss of talent, particularly on the side of the NPP, that we are going to, go into the 9th Parliament with. You would have a situation where unless NDC MPs prove some of us wrong by standing up to their own government when the government is errant, and by saying, look, what we stood for in the 8th Parliament, we are going to do same in the 9th Parliament. For instance, the celebrated work of Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa in the 8th Parliament. I hope that we are going to see that continue, even under a government that he belongs to, and we are sorry,
a government he favors, actually.
Yes, a government he favors, and then we are also hoping that we are going to see many more of them, calling out their own government and using that majority that they have, not for partisan purposes, but to serve the interests of all of us, because I think that is what this the 2024 election was all about. Ghanaians, just turned their back on the current government because they didn't like a lot of things that were happening outside Parliament and in Parliament. And I'm just hoping that, these will be lessons for the NDC, and then they would prove that maybe for the first time, a supermajority can be used to hold its own accountable. But there is also something that might go in favor of ensuring that at least to some extent we have some level of oversight. You know, as part of the reforms of the standing orders, we saw some kind of power sharing arrangements that have been introduced where not all committees are going to be chaired by the party that's in power.
Right.
Hopefully, the MPP is going to be the first beneficiary of this reform, that we will see some MPP MPs chairing some key oversight committees. And hopefully with that, at least a lot of things are not going to go unnoticed.
Right.
If really they stand up and play the role that is expected of them. So you put all these together, and then if you have a speaker who would stay the line and remain in the middle and call out the executive and the judiciary anytime the need arises, then hopefully this supermajority will be the majority that will benefit all of us.
Doc, I appreciate that you could share these thoughts with us as always, and I wish you a happy new year in advance, Doc.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to all of you.
Right, then that's Dr. Rashid Draman speaking to us on what to look out for in terms of the 9th Parliament. Just a few pointers he mentions that you guys had already been speaking to, particularly in relation to the NPP losing quite a number of individuals, and there are a lot of freshers that are going into this 9th Parliament as well.
Quality of representation is key, and I couldn't agree with him any better than that, because you see, Parliament is a house of laws, and we're going to depend on them to scrutinize deals and contracts that are going to be entered into on behalf of the Ghanaian people by the next government. So when he talks about the oversight role that the 8th Parliament with the hang nature played, we cannot discount that, because until the 8th Parliament, the Parliament of Ghana had gained that enviable tag of being a rubber stamp where whenever everything comes before it, you know what, it's just about the opposition or the minority having their say and the majority having their way. But we didn't see that in the 8th Parliament. This 9th Parliament is on a slippery path. It's either they maintain this level of oversight and accountability that we have seen, or with this supermajority, it may be something else. But because over time, we've only just seen a few incumbent government MPs who would openly oppose
against their own.
I mean, PC Appeal for it comes to mind very easily. I mean, the Sukma Dobin Brakwa, former member of parliament. I mean, in the early parliaments, the 4th, 5th parliament, he's one that he would openly speak about issues. In the 8th parliament, maybe you can point to the likes of Kennedy Ejapon, who were not, obviously happy about one or two things. They'll come out and speak about it.
And then perhaps by a long stretch, Kweku Kwate as well.
Precisely.
He was very stubborn in seeing to tax waivers being granted.
And there are many who thought that, look, that's one of the reasons why he was denied certain ministerial positions in this administration, because he thought that, look, $350 million worth of tax waivers, and I'm the chair of the finance committee. Look, it won't pass. It
was a difficult time. I want your thoughts as well in relation to Beatrice, to the 9th Parliament and then the concern. I believe that it will be a difficult job for them not to be a rubber stamp.
It will be. You're looking at over 180 MPs for the incoming government.
And there are a number of
and less than 100,
independents who are caucusing with them as well.
Exactly. And I think that's another major point he made, Dr. Rashid Draman made, that in this case, the role of the speaker becomes very pivotal, because you're moving, and that's the point Alfred made earlier as well, you're moving beyond the rubber stamp kind of part. This is actually like a supermajority. And so how are you going to manage it to ensure that the interest of the nation is upheld? Of course, after the elections, we had both even the incoming president-elect, and some MPs elect as well, saying that they were not going to abuse their supermajority in Parliament. Hopefully we see that such that we have certain members of the House standing up boldly to say that this is good for the country, this is not good for the country. Perhaps one of them who may come to mind will be Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who started this work. Now he's the chair of the Oral Operation Recoverall, and so he's probably going to play that double role of the anti-corruption agent, quote unquote, as it were, and the member of parliament who has been known over the last few years as championing things that are not in the interest of the nation. Right. So they have a supermajority. Let's hope that, per their own promise, they are able to keep the interests of the nation at heart. And of course, the speaker's role as well. Of course, he doesn't vote, but how he manages this supermajority would also be very crucial for the country.
Right. Well, all in all, we know that the Ghanaians have given them a huge mandate, and it is our hope that they make very good use of this particular mandate. We're going to stay on this parliamentary note, but first, let's go for a short break. We'll be back with more on Parliament.
Reason why I love Ghana. Then the lottery acquired 20 years. You said Ghana and Nadim Kunim.
We are one. Ghana as one.
We are proud about Ghana. Sabaya 2 years now. Akos Asundem. I ain't sure how we are.
Africa and the rest of the world salute Ghana.
Don't forget the lottery acquired 20 stands out. Love to all Ghanaians. The lottery acquired 20.
Oh, welcome back. You're still watching 2024 Year in Review right here on TV3. We're going to stay on the parliamentary note because we've already been having some very interesting conversations. 2024 will go down in history as a year that redefined Ghana's legislative and political landscape. Well, from passing laws that sparked nationwide debates to witnessing power struggles and groundbreaking reforms, the Parliament of Ghana became a battleground for ideas and a stage for change. Now, with the passage of landmark bills, fiery constitutional debates, and critical rulings by the Supreme Court, this year showcased the complexities of governance and the resilience of Ghana's democracy.
2024 was a transformative year for the Parliament of Ghana, marked by dramatic shifts in the legislative landscape, groundbreaking laws, political clashes, and monumental decisions that set the stage for the future of the country. From historic bills to constitutional debates and unexpected judicial rulings, Parliament played a central role in shaping the nation's direction. The year kicked off with significant social policy debates, notably the passage of the Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, also known as the Anti-LGBTQ+ Bill, in February. The bill, which criminalized LGBTQ activities, sparked intense debate both within and outside Parliament. It highlighted the stark cultural and ideological divides within Ghana's political class. While the debate is ongoing, the passage of the bill was undeniably one of the key legislative moments of 2024. As the year progressed, Parliament became immersed in constitutional reform debates. In March, discussions centered on reducing the number of members of Parliament and curbing the size of the executive. The Constitutional Review Consultative Committee's proposal suggested limiting MPs to 277 and placing a cap on government ministers at 25, eliminating the roles of deputy and regional ministers. These proposals sparked heated debate, reflecting a desire for a leaner, more efficient government in light of the country's economic challenges. In July, the Affirmative Action Bill was passed after 8 years of deliberation. This bill mandates a minimum of 30% representation of women in public offices and decision-making roles by 2030, marking a significant step towards gender equality in Ghana's governance. The passage of this bill was hailed as a victory for women's rights and a breakthrough in breaking down barriers to female leadership in the country.
The Affirmative Action Gender Equality Bill 2024, now Affirmative Action Gender Equity Act 2024, duly read the third time and passed.
In total, 10 significant bills were passed by the Parliament of Ghana in 2024. Amongst the bills passed by the Parliament of Ghana in 2024 include the National Roads Authority Bill, the National Service Authority Bill, the Ghana Civil Aviation Bill, Ghana Shippers Authority Bill, Affirmative Action Bill, Public Health Bill, Environmental Protection Bill, Education Reform Bill, Digital Rights and Data Protection Bill, Youth Employment and Skills Development Bill, amongst others. As the year moved on, Parliament also engaged in preparations for the 2024 general elections, and the Electoral Commission's constitutional instrument was amended. The revised CI made the Ghana card the sole identification document for voter registrations, sparking debate around voter inclusivity. It also introduced stricter controls on voter registration, including continuous registration processes, and placed tighter regulations on political party agents during elections. These changes aimed at improving the accuracy and credibility of the electoral roll, ensuring a more transparent electoral process. Meanwhile, Parliament also witnessed major political clashes. In October, Speaker of Parliament Alban Gbagben declared 4 parliamentary seats vacant, triggering heated political tensions. The declaration came after the MPs from both the ruling NPP and the opposition, the NDC, announced their intentions to contest the upcoming elections as independent candidates.
These MPs cannot be allowed by law and my good self to continue to pretend to be representing people that they don't believe in and they don't have any loyalty for in this house any longer.
This move led to accusations and a political showdown between the two major parties.
Mr. Speaker, no way! Mr. Speaker, no way! Honourable member, you don't listen at all. Mr. Speaker, I do.
The situation took a dramatic turn when in November, the Supreme Court ruled that the Speaker's decision to vacate the 4 seats was unconstitutional. This ruling restored the seats and gave the NPP back its slim majority in Parliament, underscoring the fragile balance of power in the lead-up to the elections. Finally, the year culminated in the December 7 general elections. As results began to pour in, it became clear that former President John Dramani Mahama and the NDC had emerged victorious, gaining a majority in Parliament and pushing the NPP into opposition. This shift in power signals a new era for governance, with Mahama's promises of a leaner government structure and a focus on economic reform becoming central to the political discourse. 2024 was a year where Ghana's parliament was at the heart of the nation's evolution. Its debates, decisions, and divisions illustrated the complexities of governance in a rapidly changing world. The events of the year will undoubtedly influence the path Ghana will take in the years to come, with Parliament continuing to serve as a crucial institution in shaping the country's future.
And that's what the Parliament of Ghana has looked like, particularly in an election year. I'm just going to pick final thoughts from Alfred and then Beatrice. Then we can go into the monitors for a bit more comment. Just quick thoughts, final thoughts on the Parliament and expectations for next year, because you'll be in the thick of things when it comes to the news anyway?
I'm expecting an interesting Parliament, aside from or beyond what we've spoken about. Parliament with a lot of intellectual conversations, without these physical, show of power like we witnessed in the 8th Parliament. And a Parliament that will put Ghana, first. I know this is going to be difficult, but hopefully we are able to get that, really. So that's my expectation of the 9th Parliament.
Putting Ghana first, Alfred?
Well, I mean, we forgot to talk about the demise of Dr. John Kumar as well.
That will be captured.
So, yeah.
That will be captured a lot later, and so we haven't forgotten. There's a special...
just to chip it in there as well. But I would also say that this 9th Parliament, for me, presents an opportunity for Parliament itself to show us that they can continue what the 8th Parliament started. And whoever is choosing as Speaker is key to whether or not these values we have seen upheld and increased in the 8th Parliament would be sustained in the 9th Parliament. From the 1st Parliament of Justice D.F. Anand to Talajete to Bejina Sechi Hughes to Justice Banfordado, and then also Dua Jaho at some point, and then we had Professor Aaron Michael Quay. Now, Right Honorable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman. He has had a peculiar parliament to deal with as a hung parliament. Whoever becomes the Speaker of the 9th Parliament has to look back, draw lessons from all the parliaments we've had over the last 32 years and over, and how this 9th Parliament can continue that oversight, accountability, checks and balances of the executive and the judiciary. That's my expectation.
Rather than Alfred, with expectations not just on Parliament, but with regards to speakers. Well, Judith is by the monitor. A number of you have been sharing your thoughts as to what your biggest highlight for the year 2024 has been in terms of the news. She's going to try and walk us through that right now. Judith, what have people been saying?
Exactly, Marina. So we put the question to you on our social media platforms, on Twitter, now X, on Facebook, as well as other social media platforms. And so I'm going to read some of your comments out to you. And Mark Aveli says, Nanado awarding himself as the best president ever in Ghana. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then Shisa says that Danny Olmo to Barcelona. I think that's about football. Jojo Colley also talks about NDC's landslide victory in the general election. He says that is what stood out for him the most during the 2024 election year. Hazard 10 says Cecilia Dapa in money issues. And we all know what happened really with this. We had to really see what Martin Pebu has to do with the oral team, because, Martin always mentions that to you. Always on key points. So we're really here to see what Martin is going to do about this. A boy in love says the greatest Ghanaian of our time. I do not know who exactly he is referring to.
That's in relation to today, though.
Right.
That's in relation to today.
The award ceremony.
The national honors. During the national honors today, Mr. Jololo, who was the MC, gave an unofficial award, essentially to the greatest Ghanaian of all time, who was the president. And so that's in specific reference to what that person is saying.
Interesting.
That's his highlight for the year.
Yeah, that's his highlight for the year. And so we're going to go through some more comments. And Aram Glow says, MPP losing the elections. That is her highlight for the year. Ibra GH says, Baumia losing with a wide gap. It seems that a lot of people are dwelling on this election. Victory for the NDC and loss for the MPP. Raymond Tolong says, Erastus Asare Donko being beaten for his work, at the same time being honored for it, and by the people who didn't like the work he was doing, shaking my head. Well, that's his thoughts and his highlight for the year.
That one has got me smiling.
Alfred is smiling a lot. Chumesi GH says, Pauladum Ochi and Professor Smart Sapong with two laughing emojis.
Exactly. If you know, you know. Huh?
Yeah. If you know, you know. If you know, you know.
You know, it's kind of situation.
Exactly. And so Chumesi GH, once again, he says, when Dennis Miracles Abuaje started quoting scriptures, and of course he had some 3 laughing emojis as well.
Yeah, that had to do with one of the press conferences in the aftermath of the elections, after Sami Jemfi had addressed the country and asked NDC supporters to move to coalition centers to protect the ballot. The NPP responded immediately, and that was when he started
quoting the scriptures.
On hindsight, knowing that the party eventually lost, it becomes a lot more interesting, the fact that he was quoting scriptures.
Very true.
At the moment when he did it, you wouldn't have realized, okay, why is he quoting scriptures? But in hindsight, knowing the margin of loss and all of that, that's why he's making that specific reference.
Don't forget that they knew the numbers even before the
Exactly. Exactly. So that was a highlight for one of our audiences. Sherry Intase says the monumental defeat of the New Patriotic Party in the just ended presidential election, and that has been, I mean, the same sentiment and highlight for many others who answered or gave some of their comments on the question we put right there on our social media platforms. But let's head into some more very pertinent issues, especially the issues of demonstrations in Ghana. What is a year without protests? Thousands of Ghanaians marched across the streets of the capital demanding action from government and state agencies in the hope of a better, prosperous Ghana. Well, Mawina Ebeta tells us the story through the life of one man at the center of youth activism in the country.
Ghana's protest culture is almost intertwined with its Fourth Republic. From the famous Kumipreko demonstration, which heralded a citizenry who would not sit aloof without actively participating in the governance structure, that culture has taken shape over the years, growing in its own right and also becoming a quick route to political fame and stature. 2024, like all other years, would prove no different. Hands off our hotels demo, Stop Galamsey Now, and the NDC's march to demand a forensic audit of the voters' register dominated the news cycle. Out of the lot, though, one protest typified the unyielding resolve of the young Ghanaian to demand and stand for what is right.
Stop Galamsey! Stop Galamsey! Stop Galamsey!
Over the course of 3 days, more than 50 young individuals were rounded up, some innocent, for demanding clean water and an end to illegal mining. State machinery would come down hard on them, with the courts denying bail, which upset many people. Oliver Bakavomo, who leads Fix the Country, organizers of the protests, was aware of the political undertones that could be associated with the protest.
Every protest in this country is political, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's partisan. We are political participants. We engage in the politics of the country, how the country is governed, the issues that are prioritized. That is politics, right? But the way in which we use it to imply partisanship, no, absolutely not.
As a man who has laid down his life for political activism, he has not been without great personal cost.
But I think that nobody should be in this situation. Nobody should suffer the things myself and anybody else have gone through in order to demand, in the demand for incorporation and also in the demand for social justice. It has come at great personal cost. A lot of that cost is never been played in the public eye, and people are never going to see it. And it's funny to me, you know, I hear so many people say, oh, the opposition has won now. Surely they're going to discontinue the trial.
For him, Ghana's protest culture has been defined by fear, hence a lack of the citizenry actively participating in demanding better.
The messaging or the body language from the top down is that if you turn up for a protest, we are going to kill you. And so it is not surprising that a lot of people have the feeling and thinking that if you go to a protest, you're likely to die. Now, when they say that you're likely to die, they do not fear death from their fellow protesters. But that the state, using the police force, would brutalize you in a particular way. And the state is also behind that narrative, right? The state is part of creating the sense of insecurity around protests and even in terms of the visuals.
That fear, however, will prove non-existent when more young persons in protest of the arrest of the over 50 hit the streets demanding their release.
We need to stop fooling around, and we need to create jobs so that people can have better things to do than to destroy water bodies.
A position political scientist Dr. Samuel Efriye believes contributed to the loss of the governing New Patriotic Party during the December 7 elections.
They can't even talk about Galamsey, they can't even talk about the latter part of demonstration in terms of what do we call it, the trade unions, giving ultimatum to government. I think the government, the MPP government, has seen a lot of demonstration and also kind of challenges. And I think that the government should have listened, but government was not listening to most of these concerns raised by Ghanaians.
Despite his many trials, Vomawo believes a lot more protests in the future would only help serve the interests of the country, despite attempts by the current administration to uproot that culture.
I think that this administration, this particular body language and disposition was that I think they had a feeling they wanted to uproot it. And uproot it means that if they can overwhelm it with the level of crackdown, that people will be disencouraged and not be interested in doing that as well. If the new administration goes down the same line, I think that this is it for the Fourth Republic. In many ways, I can see that something has awoken in the young Ghanaian, that the overwhelming conversation is that we ought to keep this momentum going into the new administration. And that we ought to be able to ensure that some of the mistakes that have been made in the past by going to sleep will not happen with the new administration. And that, I think that's what is ultimately going to be, that we have opened the Pandora's box of protests in many respects, and everybody who has been deprived now wants to yum.
A new government will take office from January 7, 2025, having won an overwhelming endorsement. But what remains to be seen is how long activists would wait before engaging in civil protests to demand better for whatever sector they represent. Mawina Egbeta, from the streets of the capital, always covering the next big protest for you.
And of course, that was a very interesting report by Mawina Egbeta. And if you watch TV3 often, you know that he has a PhD in demonstrations right here in Ghana. If you've ever watched any demonstration on TV3, he's always been the man on the beat, Mawina Egbeta.
King of demo coverage.
King of demonstration coverage.
He's not here yet.
Yes, yeah. we need to crown him before we end this.
It's just another day of a job, really.
No, you can't say it's
I mean,
no, it's not.
You know you do phenomenally well.
You know.
Yeah.
You know.
He's just feeling uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable at this entire conversation, really.
But Mawina, let me start with you because, I mean, we all know what you've done as regards to demonstrations. What has been your highlight for this year? With a number of demonstrations or protests that have ensued. We saw the LGBTQI one. There was one on Fix the Country as well, I think Reloaded. Yeah.
One on anti-Galamsey.
Anti-Galamsey, especially that one. And in fact, the anti-Galamsey demonstration brought about so many issues. I'm a governor and her colleagues being imprisoned and all that.
I think that for me is my highlight of the year in terms of protests. Yes, there was Hands Off Our Hotels demonstration, which was also interesting with respect to what it is that was happening, and this being labor groups going up against government and the government saying, we're not going to listen to you, we're going to go ahead and do what we believe is best in the interests of the country. I'm always conflicted between what the citizenry want and whether or not the government should be doing exactly what they want. There's always that difficulty in being able to, in the moment, determine what is right. Because in the moment, you can say, well, organized labor was right, but 10, 15 years later, we can look back and say, what if privatizing that particular hotel could have? And so that was also another significant highlight for me. But take nothing away from youth activism, which we saw come to life in ways that I've never anticipated, I thought I would see. And I mean, for a lot of my colleagues, particularly from not from senior high school, from GIJ, my first degree, they know me and how passionate I am towards seeing young folks being able to pick up the mantle of activism and be able to hold governments to put their feet to fire. And so seeing young people do what they did, and I say we because a part of me, I mean, I don't shy away from saying that a part of me supported that particular protest.
Yeah, I actually saw one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Because there was, I mean, I had a lot of questions. People asked, oh, why would you? And I was like, look, if you know me very well, which a lot of my colleagues actually do, you know that if there is one protest that you will find me at, is something which is youth-focused and something as critical as Galamsey. And so for me, it was one, covering it was, I mean, it's what I'm paid to do, literally, it's my day job. But also, there was that other aspect of it for me, which it meant more than just being on the street and shoving microphones in the faces of people. Just like it will mean more for me any day when I look back at the so many years of work that I've done, the protests that I've covered, young people pouring out on the street and saying, look, we want you to listen to us. Stop illegal mining because it's going to kill all of us, will be my highlight. Maybe when there's another youth protest devoid of the politics and just young people out on the street demanding that something be done right, then maybe that will cloud what happened this year. But youth activism will always stop it for me.
And Alfred, we've seen this year, I mean, it's been a very strong one. The youth have made their voices heard in a very strong manner, and it's happened both in the protests, in the form of protests, and also in the election proper. We saw the number of youthful people that were voting in this election and how that, I mean, reflected in the voting margins for both the MPP and the NDC. What would you say this entire protest issue that happened this year has done for the democracy of Ghana?
I think that it's giving stronger voices to young people in this country. That's not to say that prior to these protests, young people did not have a voice. We did. And you saw that expressed in many ways, especially on social media. We've had a number of protests that actually started on social media. This one that we're talking about with the illegal mining started on social media.
Clearly.
There was a lot of conversation and a lot of organization as well on social media. So on that day, even though you didn't see numbers, and that's one of the things that I think we missed the point when even for journalists and media houses are reporting about demonstration, you're looking at the number of people who poured out on the streets. No, it goes beyond that. Yes, the numerical representation of people on the streets is just one of many aspects of analyzing the impact of a demonstration, especially because now for social media, that's a go-to for young people to express our views, our opinions about, and our misgivings about governance and the offerings that we're giving as a people. So, for instance, with what we saw with this particular demonstration, I think that the way the security agency, and Mawana, you were on the ground, and for me, one of the things that I give him his flowers for is being involved and aligning with the reasoning for the demonstration.
Absolutely.
And not allowing that to influence how you report it. It's not many people who can be able to stay clear of that slippery path of the difference.
Very thin line in between.
Absolutely. And we saw the security agencies not being careful in dealing with the excesses. You see, sometimes when you allow the approach that you take to cloud the reason behind the demonstration, then you'll get that kind of backlash from people, right? Because yes, so long as you bring a lot of people together, you would have excesses. That's not without a doubt. But then again, there was a reason, the headline reason why the people were on the streets. It came at a time when we were all talking about the impact that legal mining is having on us. And look, Galamsey had a big role to play in this election as well. Because few weeks to the election, I keep saying that 2024, this election is one that, at least with the previous elections that I have covered, I can speak personally for myself, you had illegal mining taking center stage over and above those common things that you see, common themes you see in an election.
Yeah.
Corruption. Corruption was not really a big deal going into this election. But in 2016, it was. Because John Mahama was branded very well as the most corrupt human being Ghana has ever had. And that worked, right? And he lost that election. Fast forward into this, run up to this election. Yes, you had those corruption issues like Cecilia Dapa and so on. But Cecilia Dapa died off, really, some 2 months before the election. It wasn't so much of a big deal going into the elections. After, well, she's taking the money, she's spending it. I mean, what's going to be the next step? There's going to be some accountability going forward. That's Martin Pebble's real objective, you know, one of the major ones as well. But then I see that going forward, what has happened with this particular one, and then the previous one, we saw the Fix the Country as well, that started on social media.
Occupy
I see going
Julobi
for
house, they said.
Occupy Julobi. You'll see continuously young people finding their voices on various platforms. And I see that going forward, we're going to be growing a lot more of young people who have the voice to speak and speak to truth to power.
And Alfred, let me come to Beatrice, because I mean Alfred has been talking about how much the young people have made their voices so strong, especially in this year through these protests. What do you also have to say about that?
For me, I think that the highlights, it still remains the demonstration on the illegal mining issue. And for me, I think that it got that big just because also of the reactions that came afterwards. Now, you're talking about a government that said that we're going to deal with this. And a president who said when he was sworn in 2017, that I'm going to put my presidency on the line. That is telling me that you're willing to work on it. You're willing to do anything for it. Well, we didn't see him resign or do, quote unquote, anything to prove to us that he had put his presidency on the line. Now, fast forward, going into the general election, you have young people going to protest against this. And we had some people within the outgoing government saying that this was a political propaganda just to concentrate on that ahead of the elections. Because mind you, that after the 2020 election, we had some MPP people saying that they had lost some of their seats in Parliament because of their fight against illegal mining. And so bringing this topic again going into this year's general election was a very sensitive one. But I believe that beyond the protests, also how the security agencies and even the government reacted to this angered a lot of people. Because mind you, that it wasn't just the young people who were on the streets. We had been speaking repeatedly to Awula Sewa, for instance.
A Catholic church.
Yes.
For the first time in a long while.
Exactly. They also protested, right? I think around the Christ the King area.
Accra Archdiocese.
Yes, around Christ the King area. Yes. And then aside from them, we had Awula Sewa of Eco-Conscious Citizens Ghana. We've been speaking to repeatedly. Almost the whole country was saying that, listen, we need you to deal with this when you have more than half of your major water bodies polluted. And when, in fact, there were times that when I heard the expert talk about how the cyanide and all those chemicals were getting into food, I remember after I heard that the first time, I was going to the restaurant, I was like, okay, I haven't eaten fufu in a long time, but I remembered immediately that the plantain from the eastern region, perhaps, you know, it's absorbed some of these chemicals. So that's how serious it is. And then you arrest these individuals and you keep them behind bars for more than 2 weeks. And so these reactions really, I think, kind of propelled people again. Because, and then you have the LI, is it 2462?
2462.
That allows mining in forest reserves. And we said we had that directive or letter from the AG to Parliament that, don't worry, we're going to revoke it. And then it is shrouded in this parliamentary brouhaha of who is majority, who is minority. And as we speak, with just few days for this government to bow out, we don't know whether this has been revoked.
Exactly, Beatrice. And I mean, we don't even want to talk about organized labor and how they came in strongly and later, I mean, backed out of the entire demonstration. But well, that's a topic for another day. Marina, let's go into sports, because I mean, that's also a hotbed for some demonstrations.
Yes, it was, because there were protests by journalists which sparked an entire parliamentary session in terms of a committee set up, the sports committee, looking into the concerns of Ghana football. And it's been an eventful year in that sector as well. And this is how General Manager of 3 Sports, Michael Otieje, wrapped up happenings in Ghana sports in 2024.
I think you can sum up 2024 as a bad year for Ghana sports. I know there will be conversations about the hosting of the All Africa Games, and in many ways that would have been the high point, because what the All Africa Games did was that it added up to the country's stock of facilities, and pretty decent facilities. So we have more table tennis boards than we ever would have had. The University of Ghana Stadium is a great addition to the stadiums in the country and provides a running track, an Olympic-sized swimming pool. The aquatic center at the Boteman Center of Excellence is excellent. You've got multiple tennis courts there that can be used for this purpose. The indoor sporting dome there is a real legacy pass on to Ghana sports, and one that should hopefully make the development of sports better. But this was also a games that was mired in controversy, that was mired in corruption allegations that I personally think highlighted the incredible levels of incompetence at the heart of Ghana sports, with the chaotic disorganization at the start of it that almost made us a laughing stock around the world. So for me, the African Games sort of summed up the good and the incredibly bad of Ghana sports. There were decent performances, but I've always said that one of the things I always ask sports journalists was, how do you compare the performance of the athletes and the rest? When you did a side-by-side about the best times in the world, the best jumps and the rest, they didn't reflect well. And in many ways, you saw that a lot of taking part is enough. It was a disappointment for me that the 4x100 meter team dropped the baton in the manner that they did. The fact that none of the athletes made it into the final, I was not expecting that, but I was expecting a bit more from some of the individual athletes. I think for the two swimmers who were at the games, a real credit to the sport and a boost to swimming. But overall, we were just there to make up the numbers as Ghana when it came to the Olympics. Inevitably, football has been the biggest talking point, and I honestly don't think it's been great. In fact, you could, when you take out what I personally call the litany of unfortunate fares for Ghana sports, football sits right at the top of everything that didn't go well for Ghana sports in the year 2024. So for the first time, we exited the Nations Cup group stage back-to-back. We exited the Nations Cup at a group stage 2 years ago. Same thing happened now. The last time Ghana exited the Nations Cup before it happened this time was in 2000, and I think it was in as far back as 1998, and then there was 2006. So for the first time, we sort of, after missing one Nations Cup, failing to qualify from the group stage, then we failed to qualify from this group stage again. For the first time, Ghana has not qualified for the Olympics in 20 years. The last time it happened was in 2004. For the first time, Ghana went through a whole Nations Cup qualifying campaign without scoring a goal. You know, so there's been too many things wrong with Ghana football that sort of encapsulates the problems that Ghana sports has had. There was the return of Otuado in March. It was supposed to be a good one. It started brilliantly in June with those wins in the World Cup qualifiers over Mali and the Central African Republic. Then everything went completely bad. No wins in 6 Nations Cup qualifiers. We now will not be present at the Nations Cup. And the Nations Cup also summed up the difficulties of the men national football team. So apart from the Under-20 African Cup, the Under-17s didn't make it. The Under-23 Olympic male team didn't qualify for the Olympic Games. The women team didn't qualify, but the women have been provided a bit of shining grace for Ghana sports this time. The Black Queens have become a major force on the African continent again, which is real credit to the work that Nora Hoopla has done, but also credit to the Ghana Football Association for the focus they've put on the Under-17 on women's football. The Under-17s won the WAFU Zone B Championship. They are back after serving some time off over a cheating, but it started pretty well. I think the Princesses were at the World Cup again, and the Queens, I get a feeling when you look at the movement of players and the rest, are becoming a national team that is giving us a bit of credit. So not the greatest of football in terms. I think the only shining light may be that a lot of Ghanaian players seem to be coming into their own at the highest level in Europe. Michael Bedu, we had not heard from. He got his Ghana debut. He's had a wonderful season in Sweden. He's scoring goals in the Europa League. Naki Williams is not doing bad at club level. Baba Rahman is having a wonderful time of it himself. The likes of Kudus may be having their problems, but at least at the highest level of European club football, at a moderately high level of European club football, there is increasingly a good presence of young, exciting Ghanaian talent in and around the ages of 23, 21, 25 and the rest, who you have to say bodes very well for the future. So I hope things change. Boxing, the fact that boxing didn't qualify to the Olympics at all for me, it's a big mark of the year. You know, there are a lot of promoters doing a lot of work to try to give boxing the sort of image and reputation that it requires and everything. But the boxers keep complaining, the amateur boxers keep complaining about a lack of facilities, a lack of funding to get them to do very well. And the failure to qualify for the Olympics reflected that, but also just the failure of Ghana to show up and do anything decent is becoming a problem. So as far as I'm concerned, a year to forget in Ghana sports, the provision of facilities through the African Games has done the sport a lot of good, and I'm hoping that in 2025 those facilities will be utilized to create more competitions, more opportunities, more avenues for our athletes and the rest to become better, so that when we are reviewing the year 2025 this time next year, we will have a better story to tell.
And that's Michael Otieji, is head of 3 Sports here at Media General. He's a general manager, I should say. Let's take you now to Zoom. Sadiq Adams, known as Sports Obama, is a sports journalist, convener as well of Save Ghana Football Now. They kick-started a protest, but off the top of my head, haven't readily seen protests by sports journalists asking that something be done to save Ghana football, because it was that bad of a year for us in terms of sport. Ms. Obama, thank you very much for joining us, and I believe a Happy New Year in advance will be in order. You have to unmute for me briefly, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year to you too.
Right. In terms of sports, perhaps I want to pick off from where my general manager left off, that 2024 is not a year anybody in Ghana affiliated to sport has anything to do with sports will want to remember, because of how bad it's been for us. You've been in the thick of things. Your video, in fact, was one of the videos which made the rounds very much during the AFCON, when we considered that late goal, which meant that we were not going to make it into the round of 16. Walk us through that tournament, perhaps for starters, from your perspective being there, and what looked like the doldrums really for Ghana football.
Well, that's a tournament and a year that's, as a sports journalist, I would love to delete from the memory of Ghana sports ever collected. That tournament in Ivory Coast came with all the hopes and expectations, because this is a neighboring country hosting the AFCON. Ghana, Ivory Coast have had a very good relationship. Weather, everything seemed perfect, and we had the best of players, but the preparation wasn't good. We, first of all, didn't have a venue to train. There was an intention to go to South Africa for camping. The weather in South Africa was contrary to what was in Ivory Coast. So the idea that was mooted after the backlash was overturned, and the team had to come to Kumasi to camp. And the players started complaining. Some of them spoke to us privately about the lack of facilities for them to train at their own backyard. They had to make do with a training facility that was not standard. They had to be using road that was very dusty from their hotel at the center of Kumasi to Abrankase, a private facility. And in the whole of Ghana, there was no facility for the Black Stars to train. So even before the tournament, there were players in camp who were murmuring, who were speaking to journalists about the plight, the treatment that they felt was not right. They've been playing for years. They are playing for top clubs in Europe. They come back home and they are subjected to such horrible facilities for training. So that should have sent some signal, because from my, own camp and knowledge of what the players had been discussing in camp, it was pretty clear that they were not well prepared for the AFCON in Ivory Coast. And also, after 2 games, you could see that in the absence of Kudus, who missed the first game, came back for the game against Egypt, we were a team without a leader. It was a team without any sort of direction. So when we got that 2-2 draw against Egypt, at least there was some glimmer of hope that we will be able to defeat Mozambique, who had never beaten Ghana at any tournament before. So meeting Mozambique was a better opportunity for the Black Stars to recover. We had scored 2 goals, and as a journalist, I was descending the terraces to come down for, post-match conference, which was like 5 minutes away. I took to the second terrace, and then I saw the equalizer, the first goal that came in. At least they have reduced the deficit, but 2 minutes to go is certainly a win for Ghana. And I came down again to the last part of the terrace and to go straight to the press conference room. And I saw that the goalkeeper was trying to feign innocence. What happened was that there was a ball that was very harmless, and Richard Ofori, the highlight of the year for any football fan, not in Ghana, in Africa, maybe globally, a ball that was harmless, going for a goal kick, that should be welcoming, and then Ghana taking that goal kick will essentially be the last kick of the game for the Black Stars to secure qualification after missing out on qualification for the previous tournament. And then the goalkeeper touched the ball in Ghana's goal area, in the sight of the referee, and then tried to say he was innocent. And that everybody was startled. What happened for Richard Ofori? He was being shouted at by Amate and Co. to leave the ball 3-4 seconds. He touched the ball. And that became a very significant and gloomy picture on the internet, particularly on social media, touching the ball. That literally led to Ghana conceding the second goal, which sent us packing from the up.
Which resulted in that video, which became all over the African continent, really, your reaction to it. We've seen you subsequently, and the rest of your colleagues as well, seek to have some action taken in the light of all the things we've seen, because on all fronts, our teams are not performing. I think in the last few weeks as well, we've had the Black Galaxies lose. We've seen the coach, Nora Hutla, for the Black Queens as well, making an exit, even though it looks like it's not being confirmed. You're still with Parliament seeking to have some action taken with respect to saving Ghana football. Are you so hopeful a lot can come out of that, considering that the committee has met you, has met the GFA and the like, and it looks like it's blame game and nothing really is wanting to come out of this?
Well, so after that tournament and from the Cote d'Ivoire and Cameroon one and the World Cup qualifiers and basically everything that's got to do with Ghana football, we thought that we have been talking for some time, and that's not changing anything significantly. So we had to take a step further by putting together a policy document, a proposal that we thought will help transform Ghana football. And we did a very massive but peaceful protest dubbed Save Ghana Football. Like you said, I have gone to the Parliament's house twice with a team, other conveners. We have done a lot in terms of explaining what we think should be done. So we have moved from talking and writing to doing what we are expected to do as sports journalists. Parliament invited us, and we have also tabled another proposal on top of what we did during the demonstration. We were told that the reports will be put before Parliament for further assent. I don't know what has become of it. They have said that the report has been put together from all indications. Everybody involved in football has gone to Parliament. I am aware of what has gone into it, but I'm here to see the official report. Yeah, I'm yet to see the official documents and what is contained in that. But I think something positive will come out. The main challenge was because of the lack of will from the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I think that they did not help the Ministry of Youth and Sports that is yet to be disbanded on the 7th of January. I think that they did not help in terms of whatever was put together and what effort that they also had to contribute in transforming Ghana football. But I'm waiting for I'm very hopeful. Perhaps there's a new government. If this proposal will be put, most of the committee members in Parliament that I met were members of the opposition party who have an opportunity now to push forth if they are quite interested in whatever has been put in that report.
Right. Let's just finally look ahead to 2025. We're not going to be at the AFCON. Looks like on that front, hopes are dashed. We still have a chance to qualify for the 2026 World Cup, even though it continues to look a bit shaky in terms of the football we're playing. How hopeful are you that 2025 can be a better year for us in terms of sports all around, not just football, because we were at the Paris Olympics, it wasn't so great. We couldn't, a number of our athletes which were expecting to be able to at least get to medal zones could not do that. What's 2025 going to look like in terms of sports?
Well, generally, like my senior colleague Uti has already outlined, Paris Olympic Games, no impact at all, literally forgotten. Like we never made it. The Paralympics have been the shining light in Ghana sports. And it's an area that we do not give an attention and focus to. The coverage has been very minimal, but the Paralympic team won the African Championship in 2023, won the African Paralympic football in 2024 in Egypt. They have been consistent. So to me, the highlights or the national team of the year should be the Paralympic team, which we normally don't give them. That you remember when the president promised them $10,000 after their win, and they had to demonstrate before the then opposition leader, John Dramani Mahama, gave them $10,000, which became a very big controversy around that team. So we have to give a lot of attention to the Paralympic team as well. We are not in CHAN, not going to qualify for the AFCON. The World Cup is next, and I think that I cannot be hopeful if we are still going to go by the same structure and system in place. We have to remove the trees that are falling on trees. There are so many problems that I still see that we are moving from 2024 to 2025. So it will be basically putting, an old wine in a new bottle. Nothing will change significantly if we do not make these changes before we enter the new year. Like the technical team of the Black Stars, they are the same team going to take up the World Cup qualifiers. And if we have failed in all this and we still do not have to make efforts in effecting such changes, I won't be hopeful if the same structure and system persists. But let's see what happens with the new administration, especially the Ministry of Sports. And we have forgotten the fact that Ghana was banned for the first time from playing at home. So the NSA and the Ministry of Sports should be well in trying to change things from next year.
Right then, Sadiq, I appreciate that you could speak to us this evening. That's Sadiq Adams, Sports Obama, is what you know him for. Speaking to us. He's also the convener, one of the lead conveners of Save Ghana Football, talking to us about the year 2024 in sports. We have to go for a quick break. I don't know if anybody wants a small bite in relation to sports.
Maybe just a quick one. See, look, we had the All-Africa Games this year.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars were spent on feeding people and accommodating people. That money could have been used to build hostels that could have served other purposes. That has been investigated now. We don't even know the outcome of it. Look, we all know the problem of Ghana sports. We are all sporting beings. Our hearts have been broken too many times.
Too many.
We know it's the GFA. We know it's the GFA.
You wanted something.
Some of them, sack them.
Beatrice, you said what? You wanted the Black Stars?
I think the Black Stars should be collapsed. Let's stop spending money. Seriously. Yes.
I've honestly lost all hope. I don't even remember the last time I watched.
Well, not so hopeful Ghanaians with respect to the Black Stars. Alfred wants monies investigated and used to build hostels, but we'll go for a break now. We return with other parts, other sectors of the Ghanaian landscape, which we'll be reviewing for you in terms of the news cycle. Please stay with us.
This is the reason why I love Ghana. Then the lottery acquiring penty yenim se Ghana and Nadim Kunim.
We are one. Ghana as one.
We are proud about Ghana. Sabaya 2 years now. Akos asundem ayen share how we are.
Africa and the rest of the world salute Ghana.
Don't forget the lottery acquiring penty. Send love. Love to all Ghanaians. The lottery acquiring penty.
Wanna style they speak wanna truth, unapologetically ask.
Crafted with flavorful African herbs and fruits. To Wana people, we just celebrate your originality. Cheers to 8 years of authentic taste.
Through every step of life's unpredictable journey, every moment counts. That's why you need a partner you can always trust for solutions, so you can be rest assured. Having impacted over 200,000 lives, processed over 4.2 million claims, partnered with over 400 corporations, paid out over 836 million Ghana cedis in claims, contracted over 1,600 healthcare facilities nationwide, and pioneered several innovations like free medicine delivery, an interactive mobile app, and more. You'll be surprised what can be accomplished in 20 years. We're part of the Nationwide family. Are you? Nationwide Medical Insurance. 20 years of leading the way.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Chesena me ankasa me period na se problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chesena nya asem ketewa na me kwan point no mo hwe me modem no mo hwe bibia na so mo medu me fire no ene ma won kra mienu foforo kwa na mkwan mu a eba and everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama no nura ene ne ho idea watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you
of Acrobato.
Hello
hey ohwehwe what che
okay
a free bra wo di end point what dance am me call you no me just say man enkoye and person na my nyina and imagine sabema na me be fear for there the one dey nyina jaresa.
You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
1 bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior. You know, 1 bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Welcome back. Yes, you're watching Year in Review for the year 2024. We're going to delve in some more issues, and from sparking national debates to influencing politics and culture, social media drove the biggest conversations of 2024. Enunam Haliga has the details of which stories influenced and shaped opinions taking their root from the internet.
Social media has once again proven its ability to redefine what makes news.
Everyday moments became viral stories, with the digital space acting as an aggregator for thought-provoking topics that dominated mainstream media. In 2024, social media platforms like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook were the starting points for many of this year's biggest stories. One of the most engaging conversations this year was sparked by a seemingly light-hearted question: is a PhD more important than a Dutch passport? The humor in comparing academic achievement to the perks of European citizenship took over social media, creating waves of memes and commentary. News outlets quickly picked up the story, with scholars, political figures, and social media commentators diving in. Discussions range from immigration and education to privilege and identity, showing how social media can turn humor into a platform for meaningful debate. And in the political season, NDC flag bearer John Mahama would have his say on the debate.
There is widespread despair and anguish amongst our people, leading to an active debate that I have followed recently on our social media about whether securing a foreign passport to do menial jobs in Europe is better than holding a PhD in Ghana. It is a reflection of the adversity into which our nation has been plunged. Otherwise, there's no basis of comparison between a visa and a PhD.
If there was one storyline that captivated and amused Ghanaians, it was the Chef Smith's claim of breaking the Guinness World Record for the longest cooking marathon. The saga began with a press conference announcing his achievement, but social media users quickly uncovered inconsistencies. TikTok and Twitter buzzed with investigative threats, memes, and parody videos. Mainstream media soon joined the conversation, turning the incident into a case study of intersection of accountability and humor. The lingering question on everyone's mind: did Chef Smith even apply for the record? 2024 was an unprecedented year for politics in Ghana, with elections taking center stage. Social media emerged as a critical tool for campaigning, blurring the lines between entertainment and politics. A popular saying emerged: elections are not won on Twitter, but on the ground. However, the voter margin this year revealed that campaigns have evolved significantly, blending face-to-face engagement with digital strategies.
Some of them learned, and so what they did was they started using social media, for example, using X Spaces to engage with their audiences. You see, for example, Sami Jeffrey from NDC consistently was having conversations with people on X Spaces, discussing the issues that they were raising. Okay, that's how you convert. And so that's the right way to use social media. If you don't use it right, it won't contribute to your bottom line.
As new media served the interest of persons, so did it become an avenue for misinformation and disinformation. Major media outlets were in a battle with political party appendages who used their signs and symbols to deliberately craft untrue stories, quotes, and statements attributed to their political opponents. Media websites were cloned and news personalities, along with their voices, altered to sell products and grow phishing sites.
As a candidate or as a party, you cannot afford not to be active online. And that's why I keep saying that they should stop using it just as a boiling pulpit and be just broadcasting. They should use it even sometimes just for listening. Okay. Number two, they should leverage platforms like yours. I'll give myself as an example. Okay. I love football. And when I hear a story about football, there are a couple of places I go. I'll go to Michael T. James' Twitter handle to see whether he has tweeted it. Go to Gary Smith's Twitter handle. Same way, if it's about news, about politics or whatever, I'll come to the TV3 handle because I know that's legitimate. Plus, you, when you do your work, the ethics that you work with are very, very important. And the ethics ensure that fake is not part of what you do.
2024 proved that Ghana's digital space is vibrant, creative, and impactful. Social media is no longer just a space for entertainment. It's a platform for shaping public discourse, inspiring cultural pride, and holding individuals accountable. If you want to understand what's shaping the world's conversation, one thing's for sure, start scrolling through social media. Enyuna Malia, TV3 News, Accra.
And as we prepare to wrap up the year 2024 and bid farewell to it, we take a moment to honor the memories of individuals who left us. Tonight, we reflect on the legacies of these personalities whose passing marked 2024, reminding us of the indelible impacts they had on the world.
As 2024 draws to a close, Ghana reflects on the profound loss of several iconic personalities who left indelible marks on the nation's cultural, political, and creative landscape. This year, the country mourned the departure of trailblazers, entertainers, politicians, and unsung heroes whose contributions will remain etched in our memories. In January, Auntie Muni, the beloved matriarch behind Ghana's iconic watch brand, Auntie Muni's passing reminded the nation of the impact of culinary artistry in shaping culture and identity. Felicia Iresi Aban, Ghana's first female professional photographer and former president of the Association of Professional Photographers Ghana. She passed away at the age of 87, leaving a legacy that inspired generations of photographers. Vincent Macaulay, who died in January 18, best remembered for his role as Max in Things We Do for Love, Vincent's passing marked the end of a versatile acting career.
I just wanted to give you a gist of what your mom and I used to jam to back in the day. You millennials, you kids today, you have no idea what real music is. At all.
In February, Kofi Owusu Anto, known as Koda, died on the 25th of February. The celebrated gospel musician and producer known for hits like Hosanna and Nkwabodo passed away at age 46, leaving behind a legacy of inspirational music. In March, John Kuma, the Member of Parliament for Ejeso, died on March 7. Known for his humility and dedication to improving education, healthcare and infrastructure in his constituency, passed away suddenly.
Government is further taking steps to cushion Ghanaians against the hardship caused as a result of the twin crisis of COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war.
Rashid Bawa died on March 14, a seasoned diplomat and politician. The High Commissioner to Nigeria and former MP for Akan constituency dedicated his life to public service. In June, Esther Asumahine, the CEO of La Bianca Group of Companies, passed away on June 11 after a short illness at the International Maritime Hospital in Tema. In October, we witnessed the death of Ikuadonko. On October 28th, the fearless advocate for farmers and women and founder of the Ghana Freedom Party passed away, leaving behind a legacy of unwavering resolve in Ghanaian politics. In December, Agnes Anan, popularly known as Agaga, died on December 14. The veteran actress and mother of gospel artist Empress Gipti passed away, marking a heartbreaking loss for her family and admirers.
My daughter, she says I'm not Yvonne Nancy.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Where do chapter say?
Yeah, I'm now in chapter 7.
Ah, chapter 7. What's the name?
Banned by movie producer.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just want to know, are they reading
who?
The movie producer?
Mercy Little Smith, popularly known as Benyua, died on December 18. Fondly remembered for her role in the iconic Ifira TV series, her comedic brilliance will remain in the hearts of Ghanaians.
As
asema from brand and so what
Bright Owusu, popularly known as C. Confion, died on December 20, a rising star in Akabeneza's comedy troupe. His untimely passing at age 31 sent shockwaves through the comedy industry.
What? I live Jamaica before.
You live Jamaica?
Yeah, man.
Why place?
Kingston, Jamaica.
Oh, Kingston, Jamaica, yeah.
As we reflect on 2024, we honor these remarkable individuals who enrich Ghana with their talent, service, and enduring legacies. Their contributions continue to inspire even in their absence. May their souls rest in perfect peace.
And rather sad, it's just a reminder really of how fickle life is and the fact that we all, one day, if Christ does not come, because I'm a Christian, you also one day have to leave the surface of the earth. But that's how we'll end the review for the year 2024. Just quick thoughts, really, looking ahead into 2024.
2025.
2025. I'm still in 2024, so forgive me. I'm not going to stay in the year.
Let's progress.
We're going to make a lot of progress. Yeah. Just starting with you, head of political desk.
I would say that the message in the victory for the NDC, I think, hasn't lost out on John Mahama, the president-elect, right down to the last man, because a number of them appear on our shows, and they know the message in there. And for us all to rally collectively with that objective of making Ghana a better place, they must open up to us to know exactly what the situation is when it comes to the economy, so that when it comes to not being able to do what they said they would do because of what they inherited, we can also understand. At the moment that we're all not up to speed with the realities, and it's all about the politics, they know the consequences of not doing what you said you would do for the people.
Right, Beatrice, expectations 2025?
I think we say a lot of the time that politicians don't learn. Hopefully this year those in government and opposition would learn, and also we as citizens, we are responsible enough and do the right thing.
My partner.
I thought we were hosting this together.
Yeah, you have expectations for.
But well, I believe that our democracy has really evolved over the years, and now the eyes of the youth are open. They really know what they want, and so just as Alfred has said, we are hoping for that transparency in 2025 from the government and parliamentarians as to how really things are going. They should make us know and understand where we are in terms of the economy and all of the other aspects and spheres, so that we can really understand what they are intending to do. And I mean, that way, I'm sure Ghanaians will be able to at least give them that space to do their work. So yes.
Right then, my expectations 2025 will be a good year for all of us. We have